welcome to the, if we can mute everyone, I'll mute. So welcome everyone to the All Israel virtual tour of the Nativity Trail of Bethlehem and Nazareth. Happy that everyone could join us. I'll wait a couple more minutes. I think for some more people to enter. We're at over 360 now. I'll introduce myself. So I'm Joseph Magen, the managing editor and co-founder of All Israel News, along with Joel Rosenberg. Sorry that he couldn't join us today, but I would like to welcome you from the Judean hills outside of Jerusalem in a moshav similar to a kibbutz, a little village outside Jerusalem. Welcome. Thank you for being subscribers and reading All Israel News and All Arab News, their sister websites. So I'm sure most of you found out about this tour through All Israel. So thank you for joining us. And we're a news site, but we want to be more than a news site. We want to more than just a hard news site.
Computer or audio?
Soft news.
Is there any other choice for audio?
Educational news.
No.
Educational news and evangelical related news. So this tour is part of our educational mandate to teach people about Israel. And there's with the COVID, with the coronavirus, there's not many Holy Land tours coming. So you would like to meet my daughter? Yeah, my daughter is Eliana. She came in. Say hello. Yeah, this is Eliana. I have 4 children, ages 9, 7, 4, and 2. Hey, Nathan, would you like to say hi to everyone? Okay, so say hi.
Allow HC web zoom. Choose after.
Wait. Can you go out? Okay. No.
Shalom Aleichem.
Okay, so again, welcome, and this is in partnership with Travelujah Tours. This is our second tour. We had our first tour yesterday of All Israel Tours. So in addition to being a news website, so we also want to be an educational site and have tours. Tours that we can, to teach about Israel. And so we're happy to partner with Travelujah. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the screen over to our partner, Elisa Moed, and she's going to introduce Travelujah Tours and our tour guide for today, Itamar. So thank you.
Thanks, Joseph, and thank you everybody for joining. Shalom. Merry Christmas. I hope you all are having a very meaningful holiday weekend. We're really excited about doing this and very grateful that you are, put aside the time to join us today on this really special tour about Mary and Joseph and the Nativity Trail and the early years of Jesus. My name is Elisa Moed, and I'm the founder of Travelujah and the CEO as well. And we're super thrilled to be partnering with All Israel News and All Arab News on this special tour. And I guess you're probably, I'm sure from my very heavy Israeli accent, you can tell that I'm from Michigan, go blue. I grew up in a very Zionist home. My father was the head of the Detroit Zionist Federation. My mom was the chair of the local Soviet Jewry Initiative, which worked to bring Jews out of the then Soviet Union. And moving to Israel was always a dream that we shared. And my husband and I talked about it for 15 years of our marriage, the first 15 years. And then we finally moved here about 15 years ago with our 4 young children and are living now overlooking the Sea of Galilee, where I think we're pretty blessed to feel the true presence of Spirit. So I'm here today along with my trusted and very experienced tour educator partner, Itamar Ben David. You'll meet him in a second. Just so you know, because of Corona, all of our work creating and operating tours stopped. And so it's been very important for us to find a way over the last 8 months to keep people connected to Israel and to learn about Israel. And so we've been working on maintaining and creating these meaningful tours online. So we hope tourism will come back soon, but we love this. Israel is definitely our passion, and we hope you'll love this special tour today. So thanks again for joining. Our mission is to bring the Bible to life and to provide you all with a meaningful experience. And so without further ado, I'll pass this over to Itamar, and just to remind you that we will stop at one point during the program for questions. And as Joseph said, you can put your questions into the Mentimeter using the code that he put up on the screen earlier. And of course, we will also open up the mic as well at some point. But so we really welcome your questions. We hope you'll find this to be a really engaging tour. And now I'm going to pass you over to Itamar Ben David, who is in Jerusalem right now. Itamar.
Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas to you all. Wherever you are, I see so many places, like from the Philippines and Far East, all the way to the beach of California, of sunny California. So we feel very blessed and privileged to live here in Israel. I'm in Jerusalem. Elisa is by the Sea of Galilee. And we wanted to give you a little taste of what we do best. So I'll just share this little video with you. There you go. Oh, no. I think I didn't share the sound. Pardon me.
Hello, I'm an Israeli tour guide from the Travelujah agency. Join us here to see amazing Jerusalem.
So that's a little taste of what we do, guiding tours in Israel. And since COVID, we have started these line of tours. So as Lisa said, my name is Itamar, and we will be happy to answer your questions during the session. We'll stop one at the end of the session, one in the middle of the session. For questions, we'll have Elisa or Joseph they will read it, the questions. So please don't hesitate to ask those. We are, of course, welcome you to do that. And what is our plan for today? We want to walk in the Nativity Trail. So by using Google Earth, we can definitely see the entire world, including the little country we're in, Israel. So this is it. What you see here is the Mediterranean over here. That's our beach, our main beach. The Red Sea at the bottom, the Dead Sea over here, not too far from Jerusalem. If you look at the middle of the screen, you'll see Jerusalem. So it's not that far from Jerusalem. And the Sea of Galilee just over here. We're going to start our tour with Nazareth, where the Church of Annunciation is, between Haifa and the Sea of Galilee. So this is just a little overlook of these sites. Then we are going to visit a little town in the Judean hills. Back in the days, today it's a neighborhood of Jerusalem. This place is called Ein Karem. Ein Karem, if you haven't heard of it, it's fine. That's what we're here for. This is where John the Baptist grew up. Okay, so we will talk about that as well. Then we'll go further south to the Palestinian territories, to Bethlehem in the West Bank. That's the city of Bethlehem. In the heart of it, the Church of Nativity over here. We will also be talking about the flight to Egypt. We'll talk about Jerusalem and how Jesus as a child was presented in the temple several times, and the place where he started his ministry in the Jordan River. But as far as Mary and Joseph are concerned, when they raised him here in Nazareth. And then we'll talk about, as I said, this little town, Ein Karem, at the Judean hills. So how did they get from Nazareth to Jerusalem and to Bethlehem over here? There are two options. One would be to walk through Samaria over here. That will be the shortest way. But as we know, it was unsafe for Jews to walk through Samaria. The Samaritans and the Jews had some animosity back in the days. So it's more likely that the Nativity Trail went through the Jordan River like that, and to Jericho, and to the Mount of Olives and Jerusalem like that. Or even they walked on the Transjordan Mountains, just like that, and then crossed the Jordan River over here. So this is probably the Nativity Trail, the one with the blue. So in Karen, Bethlehem, the flight to Egypt, escaping the massacre of the innocents by King Herod, as he known, the King Herod the Great. He was a great builder, but a terrible leader, a very cruel person, both in Jewish and Christian traditions alike. After that, as I said, we're going to visit a little bit Jerusalem, back to Nazareth, and we'll finish at the Sea of Galilee. We won't be talking about the ministry of Jesus, of course, not this session. We're focusing on his younger early years, sorry. So that's our plan for today. So let's move on. Here we are. Okay. So we will combine photos, videos, and the help of Google Earth in order to show you all the places, all the important places, starting with Bethlehem, just over here, just one of Bethlehem.
Yeah, but that doesn't get it on.
You guys can keep your microphones shut, not because I don't want to hear your questions and everything, just so it will be nice and smooth for everyone. So this is a Manger Square. The Church of Nativity is over here. This is the Christmas tree in Bethlehem. And we are going to walk with Mary and Joseph along the Nativity Trail. Before we do that, I'll just mention that the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah just ended about a week and a half ago. And what you see here, these two folks are in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem, taking pictures near these candelabras that you see over here. And it's a celebration of light. And we put the Hanukkiahs, that's how we call these menorahs, these oil lamps, Hanukkiahs, we put them outside in order to celebrate the miracles of Hanukkah. Two important miracles. The first one is the military win over the Greek Empire. The Jews, the Maccabees, managed to successfully liberate themselves from the hands of the Greek Empire of that time, the Seleucid house. And the other miracle was that one little vessel of oil, of pure oil, lasted in the temple after all these wars. And they thought it's going to last just for one day to light the candelabra in the temple, the menorah that symbolizes wisdom and knowledge of God. And it happened that this one little vessel lasted for 8 days. 8 days, very important number in both Judaism and Christianity. So in order to, and because of that, we light these candles for 8 days. So that's Hanukkah. Why am I mentioning Hanukkah? Because Jesus was celebrating Hanukkah, as you can see just over here. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, and it was winter. So Jesus is visiting Jerusalem during Hanukkah. Also, Jesus refers to himself as light, and often when in Second Temple times, people refer to light, they refer to that menorah, that candelabra in the temple. So this is one little example. I have come into the world as a light, so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness. So this is the menorah in the tomb of just near the tomb of King David here in Jerusalem. You can see the oil, olive oil, of course. Let's just put that in mind. We'll see how it connects, of course, to our story. So this is just a little bit, about Hanukkah. So I would say that in these short days, very dark days of the year, we have celebrations, both Hanukkah and Christmas, celebrations of life, light, and hope over death, darkness, and despair that we all share due to COVID. And you can see it symbolized by two trees, One of them is on the left, that's the olive tree, and the other one on the right is the Christmas tree. And in between, I put a Byzantine oil lamp. It's 1500 years old oil lamp that was serving Christians here in Jerusalem. You can see the cross over here. It was used with olive oil. You can see where they put the wick just over here. So that's a combination of these two holidays, the olive oil and the cross over here. We are going to start with Nazareth, the city of Nazareth. And just before we start, I wanted to show you a few art pieces that were donated by Christian communities to the church. So you can see over here, the Japanese Mary and baby Jesus, just over here to the left, the Thai one over here, and the Chinese one. I think it's quite unusual. We don't often see these kind of little baby Jesus. And my plan now is to show you the church itself. So with the help of Google Earth, we are going to fly now to Nazareth. And I want to show you a few photospheres of the church. I just remind you guys that if you can close or mute yourself, that will be very easy for everyone that are on the session. So this is the facade, just the entrance to the Church of Annunciation, just over here. That's how it looks like. It's in the city of Nazareth. About 70,000 people, all Arabs, mostly Muslims, but there are about, I think, 20% Christians over there. So this is where these art pieces are in the church are, again, donated by Christian communities worldwide. And let's see it from another angle. Again, the Church of Annunciation, this is from another angle. The entrance is just over here, but I'm showing you now the dome, very unique dome it has. That's how it looks like from outside. This is the Basilica. This Basilica was built in the 60s and early 70s, but it's built at the same place where the ancient Byzantine church was built, and the Crusaders church was built too. And the location itself, as you're going to see, it's Mary's house. So let's go to the grotto. Whoop, here we are. So before we see Mary's house, I just want to show you the dome. Over here, you can see the beautiful dome of the Church of Annunciation in Nazareth. It's shaped like a lily flower, kind of upside down, symbolizing with the whiteness, as you can see, symbolizing the purity and the virginity of Mary. You can see again the basilica itself. You can even see the remains from the ancient Byzantine church. You can see these ancient mosaics just over here, and there are a few wall paintings, wall paintings, frescoes over there. And most important is this. This is Mary's house, just over here, what you see over here. And there's a little altar inside. And this is the early, like since early days, since early Christianity, this is the place that was identified as Mary's house and the place of Annunciation where these words were said. So I'm reading now from the Gospel by Luke, chapter 1. Now in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The virgin's name was Mary. And having come in, the angel said to her, "Rejoice, highly favored one. The Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women." So this happens here in the Annunciation, where Jesus was conceived. On Christmas, we definitely celebrate the Nativity in Bethlehem, of course, but where was Jesus conceived? That's the place. So we started with this one, and I want to tell you a few things about Nazareth. So going back to my presentation, and I want to share with you, again, I'm a native Hebrew speaker, born and raised in Israel, and I want to share with you a few insights about this very special name, Nazareth. It's not a random name. So in Hebrew, we have what we call root system. So every 3 letters creates huge semantic field with many, many words. And Nazareth is one of the more exceptional words because it's connected to really big semantic field. So if we look at these 3 letters, you can create few important words from it. First one is netzer. In Hebrew, we say Natzrat, netzer. Netzer means shoot of olive tree. As if to fulfill the words of Isaiah, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. That's, of course, speaking about Jesus. Then we have another root that is associated with it, natar or noter, which means guardian. Guardian. Jesus is a guardian for mankind. Then we have nezer, which means crown. It means crown. He's a king. So the king would come from Nazareth. And lastly, neder, which means oath. Okay, that is to fulfill an oath or a new vow. So this is it. That's what you can see over here. So again, this is the original site, ancient site of the House of Mary. That's the grotto that I showed you. And this is, of course, before COVID, what you see over here. From there, we want to go south to the town, okay, a town in the hill country of Judea. That's what we know today as Ein Karem. And what you see here is the church of John the Baptist. It's in Ein Karem, and traditionally this is where he was born. So let's say a few words about John the Baptist, the relative of Jesus. As you can see, he was born to a man called Zechariah. Here to the right side, you can see he's dressed up like a priest, perhaps even a high priest. And it says this in Luke: in the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly division of Aviah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron, meaning he is a priest from both sides. Okay, his mother is a daughter of the Kohens, the priests, and his father is a priest. Okay, so that's he is definitely a priest because it's a bloodline all the way from Aaron, the brother of Moses, first priest, all the way down to these two, to Zechariah and John the Baptist. So as you can see, there is a very big difference in their clothing, right? One is wearing the beautiful garments of a priest, and the other one, John, is wearing skin of camels and is eating locusts and wild honey. Okay, very, very different. He rejected the corrupt temple in Jerusalem of that days. Okay, so this is John the Baptist. We'll get back to him. I'm going now to talk about the visitation of Mary. Shortly after she conceived, she's going on a, let's say, 100 and something miles journey from Nazareth down to Jerusalem, to the Judean hills, to meet her relative Elizabeth. So let's read it together. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, okay, she just met her at the spring. That's where the spring is. So Mary says hi, and when Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. In a loud voice, she exclaimed, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the child you will bear. As soon as the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby in my womb leaped for joy. Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord will fulfill his promises to her." So at this point, Elizabeth, that was a barren woman, she's 6 months pregnant, okay? And we know that Mary just conceived. So this is the first time John and Jesus will meet up. They will only meet again 30 years later at the Jordan River. So this is their first meeting, still as babies in their mother's womb. So what you see here, that's the place where the spring is. There's still water over there. I was there like 2 weeks ago. Don't worry, the water is still there. That's the ancient spring of Ein Karem. And traditionally, this is where they met. Immediately, Mary responds to her cousin blessing, and she says, and Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant." So these are the two ladies, Mary on the left side, younger, still you can't tell she's pregnant yet. and Elizabeth, which was an older lady at that time. You can see a little older feature over here, and she's 6 months pregnant at this point. And the first meeting, as I said, of John and Jesus. That's again how these churches in Karem look like, and we are going to move to Bethlehem. But please, Elisa and Joseph, if there are any questions, please let me know.
Okay, will do.
Just be a little bit louder.
Louder, okay. Tell me if it's better. Better now? Okay, so it's louder. Good. So if there are no questions, I'm going to move now to Bethlehem. So between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, there is a wall. And what I'm showing you now is the security barrier that was built by Israel during the early 2000s due to the Second Intifada. And it has lots of graffiti, street art, and probably this is one of our favorite. Make hummus, not walls. So one day I hope we won't have to see this wall again, and will be peaceful times here in Israel. But in the meanwhile, this is again the barrier. It's very close to where I lived, maybe 5 minutes drive. So we're going to enter now to the Palestinian territories. I want to show you how it looks. Here we are. So this is the checkpoint just over here. See the cars, some soldiers over here and over here, right in the middle. And you can see, you can buy souvenirs right when you enter Jerusalem, Bethlehem, sorry. You can see, you can buy those bags right at the beginning. So that's how it looks like. But our focus is, of course, on the Manger Square, guys. So this is the Church of Nativity, just over here. This is the church. We're going to enter to it in a moment. I just want to show you the square itself. This is in Bethlehem. So you can see the municipality of Bethlehem. There's always a Christian mayor in Bethlehem, regardless of the percentage of Christians in Bethlehem. It's also declined over the years. I think now it's about 20 or 30% of the city. And the rest are Muslims. You can see the Palestinian flag just over here, and there's a mosque. And I'll just say that Muslims also celebrate, in a way, they also celebrate Christmas, definitely in Bethlehem, for two reasons. First one is that Jesus is a very important prophet in Islam too. So they cherish him, they would visit the church. They won't necessarily, they won't take communion or anything, but they will visit it, they will greet their Christian neighbors. And the other reason is the more celebration, the better. So this is, again, the Muslims of Bethlehem. So this is what I want to show you on this part, Bethlehem Peace Center. And we're going to move a little bit forward towards the church. I want to show you the entrance to the church. That's how it looks like. So as you can see, there was a bigger gate back in the days. It was blocked. And now we have this smaller gate that you can't enter the church without bowing as an act of humility towards the towards this church. So this is, again, the little gateway to the church. And again, we came from here. We came from the Manger Square. Let's move into the church. This is how the Byzantine Church of the Nativity looks like. It's an amazing church, amazing basilica, and it's original. So aside from renovations that took place over there for, again, 1600 years almost, that's how the church looks like. You can see original mosaics decorating the walls over there, the columns. Really an amazing church. So this is it. And our plan now is to walk to the grotto and see the manger. Okay, this is the original location of the manger. This is a very ancient.
You're muted.
Your audio is not coming through.
Itamar.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yes, I just
Unmute
noticed
yourself,
that.
sorry.
So I just said what you saw now, that's the manger. I didn't say much. I just wanted you to enjoy the little video. And what I'm going to do now, again, I want to take you over there to the manger. Just over here. Here we are. So this is the little chapel at the grotto of the Church of Nativity. You can see happy travelers visiting it before COVID. They're saying a blessing, praying, and then they would take some pictures to remember the place where Jesus was born. So I would say Christmas is, of course, deeply connected to the place of birth. This is it. I'm going to move now back to the presentation so we can learn more about Bethlehem. Here we are. So we just entered the city. Okay, good. This is the Christmas tree at Bethlehem. Nativity scene just over here. The alleyways that leads to the church.
Star Street.
Star Street. There you go. Star Street, just over here. The place where Joseph and Mary walked to get to the manger. And again, the basilica and the manger itself, just over here. Moments after the birth, we have a revelation to the shepherds, shepherds' fields. This is the church over there today. And one might wonder, okay, why do we care about these random shepherds? What do we need them for? So there was a revelation. The angel revealed himself to the shepherds, and then they rushed to Bethlehem to see what happened over there. So one might ask, okay, why do we need those shepherds? So it's connected to the story of Boaz and Ruth that were also in the fields, in the threshing floor over there. Again, the great ancestor, the great grandparents of David. We'll get back to David, but it's also connected to Isaiah and his prophecy that was, he was very angry with the children of Israel. He says to them, the ox knows its master, the donkey its owner's manger. But Israel does not know, my people do not understand. So to commemorate this prophecy and also to correct the hearts of Israel, we have the donkey and the ox and the shepherds over there, along with the three kings of the east. Okay, so you can see the camel just over here, the three kings of the east, Joseph and Mary, of course, and baby Jesus here in the middle. And you can see he has this crib, the man, with it's made of wood. We'll get back to that, but I'll say a few words about these kings, these three kings. Okay, this is again stone mangers that we found all over Judea. So it's possible that it was not a wooden manger, but a stone one. It's possible. Let's talk about these kings. This is again, I'm reading from Isaiah. He said, many words that are associated with light in this prophecy. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples, but the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Then you will look and be radiant, your heart will throb and swell with joy. And then it goes on. Herds of camels will cover your land, young camels of Midian and Ephah, and all from Sheba will come bearing gold and incense. Sounds familiar, I'm sure. So, and proclaiming the praise of the Lord. Okay, so as you can see, it's deeply connected, of course, to the ancient prophecies of Isaiah. I'm talking about perhaps 700 years before Christmas. That's how myrrh and frankincense looks like, by the way, when it's, let's say, the raw material. And that's how it looks like. It's coming from Yemen and Oman in the Arabian Peninsula. So this is, again, the type of incense that they had. Now we're going to talk about Bethlehem. Why Bethlehem? Okay, so before I'll go to the census of Augustus, I'll just say that the first words of the New Testament are the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. So David is extremely important. They don't mention the son of Joseph. They could start with the son of God, but they mentioned specifically David, and that's very, very crucial, as we're going to see. Joseph, I'll take questions in just a few. I'll just end that part and we'll take some questions. So I'll just say, I'm quoting now from Luke, the Roman census in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world, and everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. So we see, of course, that Joseph is descendant of David. And the other thing that I want to point out, Joseph went up, okay? He went up. Although Galilee is northern from Bethlehem, we still call it went up, okay? Because these areas of Jerusalem and Bethlehem is superior spiritually than other areas. So we also use that in Hebrew. We say aliyah, aliyah, to ascend to Jerusalem, to ascend to Israel. So this is very, very important in our language. Whenever we want to point out an elevated spiritually elevated place, we would say went up, ascended up. Although the mountains of the Galilee, most of them are higher actually than the mountains of Judea. That's one part. Let's continue. We're still trying to understand why in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is a periphery to Hebron. Okay, so David was born in the periphery of the tribe of Judah in his days. So I would say, if I have to use the words of Nathaniel, Bethlehem, can anything good come from there? Okay, as if to say about King David. King David is coming from the periphery of the tribe. In the days of Jesus, there was the main center, the days of the Second Temple, the main area where Jews lived was Judea, and some lived in Transjordan in the Galilee. And when people come from these far remote areas, they're coming from the periphery. So that explains the words of Nathaniel. Nazareth, can anything good come from there? Another reason why Bethlehem, it's the house of bread or flesh. So Beth or Bait in Hebrew is a house, and Lechem is the word in Hebrew for bread. In Arabic, it would use for flesh. These are sister languages. So flesh and bread, it's coming from the same ancient root. And then I'll use the words from John. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. So we see that in Jesus' words, he's connecting these two meanings of the word, bread and flesh, okay? So this is, again, why Bethlehem. David, as we said, David was born in Bethlehem, he's from Bethlehem. Jesus is, of course, descendant of David through his father. And both of them are connected to the number 33. So Jesus was crucified at the age of 33, and David ruled in Jerusalem for 33 years, 7 years in Hebron, and then 33 years in Jerusalem. So that's another little connection. Messiah. So what you see over here, these are the olive trees, the massive olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane in Jerusalem. They are huge, they're beautiful, and they're about 700 to 800 years old. The olive trees, we use them, of course, for oil, the olive oil. And the first press, what is called the virgin olive oil, we use the word in Hebrew, mishcha. Mishcha. And the one that is anointed with the olive oil is called Mashiach. Mishcha, Mashiach, Messiah. Okay? So David was anointed in Bethlehem by prophet Samuel, and Jesus was anointed in Bethany. So they are both anointed, they are both Messiahs. Okay? Messiah, anointed ones. Lastly, Mount of Olives. We know that Jesus, after Palm Sunday, he had to escape from the city He spent most of the Holy Week in the Garden of Gethsemane and in Bethany. And only towards Thursday, the Last Supper, he goes back to the city. So he had to escape to the Mount of Olives, just like David also escaped from his rebel son Absalom through the Mount of Olives, from the city of David through the Mount of Olives to the Judean desert. So as you can see, there are many reasons to connect Bethlehem and David with Christ. So this is what you see here. The flight to Egypt, as we know, questions. Joseph, if you or Lisa can.
There's some questions first on the chat. Let me tell you, we want to go back here for a minute. Chris Blackburn's been very patient. He asked if you could show the position of the Tower of the Sheep in Bethlehem, where Rachel died, giving birth to Benjamin. And also if you could clarify that the manger is actually located in a cave beneath the Church of Nativity. It's not a built structure.
About the tomb of Rachel, fine. What was about the other one?
Where did she die giving birth to Benjamin?
Yeah, that I'm going to show you the tomb of Rachel now. But what was the other question?
About the where Jesus was born was not an actual building, but it was in a cave.
Of course, not a cave. It was a manger. It was perhaps
underneath the church.
Stone or wood, probably stone structure of some sort. I hope I answered your question.
That was the reason for my asking about the Tower of the Sheep. Maybe that's where Jesus was born. There's no mention of a stable, in any of the Gospels. And the shepherds were watching over the sheep due for sacrifice. So it sort of fits that Jesus should be born in the Tower of the Sheep, where the lambs were born. The association with Rachel, Rachel rather, giving birth to Benjamin.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with that. It sounds very reasonable what you're saying. There is, I will just say, I'm trying to, it's a little difficult to do that spontaneously. The tomb of Rachel, apparently I don't see any Google Earth footage of it. So, but I will share my screen just to show you approximately where that is. So over here, just take a look. This is Jerusalem, just over here, the city of Jerusalem. I live like in this area, and that's the road to Bethlehem. And since the Second Intifada, the area where the tomb of Rachel is, this is it. But I'll just say there is some disputes between rabbis and scholars where was really the tomb of Rachel. Some suggest it's here, very close to Bethlehem, and others suggest it's actually in the northern end of Jerusalem, which is, let's say, it's very reasonable that it's over there. This way or the other, this just near Bethlehem, this is the area just over here. This is where the tomb of Rachel is, and sadly, I don't see any photospheres to share with you at the moment, but that's the location. As you can see, it's very, very close to Bethlehem itself. Okay, just over here. What you said is very reasonable. I mean, connecting again the place of birth of Benjamin with, I have to explore more about it, but thank you for this comment. Other questions?
Can I ask a question? Can anybody hear me?
Sure.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Go for it. Ask a question.
Oh, wow. I can't believe this. Anyway, this might sound silly, but when you saw the statues for the Nativity, why do you put the wise men there at his birth?
Why the wise men are there?
At his birth.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I suggested the prophecy of Isaiah, chapter 60.
Yes, but the wise men did not come to baby Jesus. The wise men came when Jesus was a young child, not at his birth.
Well, let's read it in Matthew. This is Herod here. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary, his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when
There was no animals there. It was not at his birth. I thought everybody knew that who was knowledgeable, really. I mean, I'm in the States, you know, and all the manger scenes show that. But I thought maybe in Israel, it would be more accurate.
But look, just the verse after that, there is the flight to Egypt. So it's definitely shortly after he was born. You see?
No, I don't see, because it says they came into the house where Mary was as a young child. That's what it says, doesn't it?
Thank you for your question. I think we're going to go on to some other questions. And
yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe.
There's a question here that says, Itamar, is there a link between the lambs and the shepherds to the Passover lambs? And is it true that those lambs were wrapped in swaddling cloth and kept in the...
What is swaddling cloth?
Kind of like a blanket, how you swaddle a baby.
Okay. So how is it connected to the sheeps?
Yes. Is there a link between the lambs and the shepherds to the Passover lambs? And is it true that the lambs were wrapped in swaddling cloth?
I'm not familiar with this. But back to the lady, in Hebrew, when you say young child, sometimes it's just a newborn. So for me, it sounds very consistent. So yeah, young child, it's not like 3 or 4 years old. Young child, it could be newborn too. So that's how we'll have to look at the Aramaic translation too, just to confirm it. But it's in Hebrew, it makes perfect sense that he's a newborn, and it's called young child. It's fine.
Yeah. Also comment about the nativity site being and Helena, and like why that site was, how that site was identified, because as you know, there's other sites that possibly could be valid, and maybe you can comment on other sites that might be, valid. There's a question specifically here about, are there any sites which are not covered by church structures today that could be alternate sites for the birth of Jesus?
Look, although both the Catholic and the Greek Orthodox are very dominant in the Holy Land, Custodia Terra Santa and all that, they built in most of the traditional sites. And these traditional sites, I'm saying traditional as if it's not the original ones or anything, but it's not. It's in most cases, it makes perfect sense that this is the original ancient site. The early Christians, they kept the tradition for a few centuries between the birth of Christ, between the crucifixion and the resurrection, and until the 4th century, 300 years later, when the Roman Empire converted to Christianity. So they remember those sites. And in some cases, when the Romans built temples and those holy sites for Christians as a part of a whole policy to oppress the early Christianity, these pagan temples actually marked for the early Christians, it marked where was the ancient site. So those built up places, it doesn't look genuine maybe for us today, but these are actually the ancient sites. So it makes a lot of sense.
I have it. This is Lynn speaking.
Yeah, but let's continue more, and we'll have another time, more time for questions, if you don't mind.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sorry about that, but we want to move on just for a few more things.
Yeah.
So what you see here is the flight to Egypt. One would have to ask, okay, how come they take a newborn to Egypt? Why not maybe back to the Galilee to hide somewhere from King Herod? Why not to Damascus? Why not to Transjordan or the Israeli desert, the Negev desert? Why all the way to Egypt? So it's a part of, I would say, a prefiguration, the idea that Jesus has to suffer just like the children of Israel has suffered. Pharaoh threw the baby boys to the Nile, and the modern Pharaoh, or modern for that time, King Herod, he massacred the innocent. So just like the tribes of Israel has suffered, so did Jesus in a way. It relates to this pain. Also, Jesus is in a way connected also to Joseph and Moses. One saved the Gentiles of Egypt from starvation during the 7 years of famine, and Moses redeemed the children of Israel. So in a way, he had to be in Egypt to connect to all these important characters. And after that, during that time when Jesus is in Egypt, John is hiding in a cave in the Judean hills. And what you see over here, this is the cave, the traditional cave where John the Baptist was hiding with his mother Elizabeth from the massacre, again, the massacre of the innocents in the days of King Herod. We're about to leave Bethlehem, but I'll just show you the Mill Grotto over here, where Mary nursed Jesus. And today it's a place of prayer for many local Christians that want to ask for fertility. And what you see over here, these are pictures of babies that were born after this prayer in the church, the Milk Grotto. It's also, there's a cave over there. So this is, again, some interesting more modern thing, I would say, in Bethlehem. We're moving to Jerusalem. And before I'm getting to the old city, I just want to point out this model of the Second Temple of Jerusalem. And what I want to share with you is, again, the childhood of Jesus. Since he was a baby, he came to Jerusalem several times, according to Luke. So whenever they came from the Mount of Olives, which is where this picture was taken from. Okay, it's a model, but there's like a higher area where you take pictures of the model, not just for the sake of the picture, but there is really the Mount of Olives over there. So it gives us the angle to look at Second Temple Jerusalem, and that's the Jerusalem Jesus knew. What you see over here, this is the first gate to Jerusalem, to the Temple Mount. Then there is another gate over here, and a set of stairs, and a third gate just over here before you see the altar. This is the temple, of course. It was 150 feet tall, okay, a massive building. So let's see how it looked like back then. Again, this is another model of the temple. So right over here, let me just mark it, right over here, maybe I'll use, this is thicker. This is where the Israelites were standing, the Jews at that time, whenever they came to the temple to give offerings, to atone their sins, and to ask God, to be thankful to God. So the priest would approach them over here, and they would sacrifice on the altar whatever they gave, and whenever they needed to do to enter the temple, only the priest would enter it. So let's see this. Let's read the words of Simeon. Simeon took him in his arms and praised God, saying, "Sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you may now dismiss your servant in peace, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all nations, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel." So these are the words of Simeon that blessed Jesus in the temple. And what I want to share with you now is a video of the Temple Mount and the places where Jesus and his family walked every time they came to the city. So let's take a look. What you see here, this is the gate, the golden gate, the gate of mercy, the one that I showed you in the model. And from here, they had to walk towards the main plaza. Okay, of course, this is not the original ones, the original stairs. There were many changes especially during the Crusaders period and the Mamluk period that came just after it, about 700 and 800 years ago. But from there, you would walk towards the main plaza of the temple. I'm going to show you where this plaza is. Just a quick walk, a few stairs, lots of trees, as you are going to see now. There are many trees now at the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And more or less over here, this is where the plaza has started for Jews in purity. Okay, they had to come in purity, they had to bathe in a ritual bath. And this is where they would gather 3 times a year during Passover, Pentecost, and the Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. And every time they had an occasion, let's say you're a farmer, you want to bring the first fruits, this is where you would gather over here and give your offerings. What I'm showing you now is the Mount of Olives. So this is where they came from every time, through Nazareth, Nazareth, the Jordan Valley, and then through Jericho to the Mount of Olives. Then they would move towards the temple. They would walk towards the temple and climbed up. And the first time that Jesus was visiting Jerusalem, it was when he was probably 40 days old, to be redeemed. All the firstborns belongs to God. The first fruits belongs to God. So he came here with his parents to be redeemed. It's described in the book of Leviticus. You have to pay a certain tax of 5 pieces of silver. So they would approach the stage just in front of us where this dome is. This is approximately where the altar stood, just over here, a bit before it, like that, somewhere over here. And the priest would approach to them, would ask them a few questions about themselves and where they are from, and then they would have to pay the tax. They didn't have 5 pieces of silver, so they only paid 2 doves. After that, a few years later, at the age of 12, Jesus is coming again to the temple, and a bit here to the right, let's take a look, just over here, there was a building where the sages used to talk, used to converse about the Jewish law, about the Torah, etc., etc. And Jesus was forgotten in the temple, as we know, and a few days later, his parents are coming back. Joseph and Mary were worried sick, I'm sure. And then they came to this house of the sages and they saw that Jesus is asking questions, answering questions, and everyone is marveling his wisdom. And they told Jesus, "What are you doing here?" So Jesus answered, "I'm in my Father's business." So since a young age, since he was 12 years old, he already knew what his purpose, I guess. So this is his 12 years old visit, his visit to Jerusalem when he was 12 years old. Okay, moving forward now to his early days again as a carpenter in Nazareth. We don't know a lot about his years between 12 and 30, but we do know he was a carpenter and son of a carpenter. And this is not a random occupation. It's a code in a rabbinic Judaism for smart men. So what I'm showing you now is the rabbinic literature. And if some of you know how to read Hebrew, I'm just pointing out the word nagal, which means carpenter. And in this particular debate, the rabbis are saying their own discussion, and then they don't know how to solve it. And then they ask for a carpenter or son of a carpenter that will help us out and figure this conundrum over here. So this is like an ancient code for someone smart, and Jesus was definitely a smart man. What I'm showing you now is mosaics from Tzipori, the main big city in the Galilee in those days. And Jesus, if you want to find some livelihood, he couldn't do it in Nazareth. Nazareth was a tiny place. The big city was Tzipori, and I'm just trying to demonstrate to you the wealth of that city by showing you these mosaics. So probably he was fixing the furnitures, etc. Over there in Tzipori, you can see the Mona Lisa of the Galilee. Again, extreme wealth was in Tzipori back then, and this is probably where he worked. Okay, so it's not written anywhere. This is just the common sense based on all the history we know about the region, about the Galilee. Finally, at the age of 30, Jesus would meet John the Baptist. And now we can talk about the difference between these two. I mentioned that John is priest from both sides, his father and his mother. And Jesus is a very unique person. He's half royalty from the house of David and half priest. That's why Mary is visiting her relative Elizabeth, not just for the two to meet. It also gives us information about Mary herself, that she's a daughter of a priest. Joachim, his name was Joachim, but it's not written in the gospel. It's written in external books. So we see that Jesus is combining many different characters. He's identified with many different characters, including, of course, David the king and the line of Aaron the priest. This is, again, the baptismal site in the Jordan River. That's how it looks like. a very interesting attraction over there is to take photos with the girl soldiers over there. It's right on the border with Jordan. After that, Jesus will return to Nazareth at the age of 30 after he was baptized, and just to be shoved out of the synagogue. The people over there wondered, isn't it the son of the carpenter? How come he's suggesting he's the Messiah? So he was pushed out of the city of Nazareth and ended up start his ministry in Capernaum. So this is again the end of his early life, I would say, and from here on we're talking about his ministry. So this is for another session. So thank you very much for being patient and being with us. And if there are any questions, I would love to answer.
Yeah, I'll ask the questions in Mentimeter that people
welcome
submitted. So 2 are very similar. So I'll ask them at the same time. I'll spotlight myself too.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
Okay. So yeah. So what evidence is there to support the nativity site where the church is located? And similar to that is there consensus? Is there consensus agreement about the locations, or are there alternative sites that could also be valid? Which, question mark, are there any sites which are not covered by church structures today? Covered in quotes, meaning built upon.
Yeah. So again, because in early Christianity, they kept these traditions for a few centuries. And during the Byzantine era, many churches were built, many. And they all built on these traditional sites. Again, this is 300 years later, but there were always Christians, early Christians that kept the memory of those sites. So I would say that it depends which story we're talking about. About the Nativity, about the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, about the Annunciation. These are, I would say, very much in consensus, not just among the clergy, but even scholars would say this is probably the authentic site. The Room of the Last Supper, very, very ancient and authentic site. And it's built up. What can I say? When it comes to I wouldn't say alternative site, I'll just say that whenever there is dispute, the dispute happened a bit later in history, to the point that one would say there is a question mark. What was the motivation of those people at a certain time in history to decide, no, this is the original site? So I would tell you this. I'll tell you a little story about the renovation in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It has nothing to do with the session that we did today, but at the Tomb of Christ, about 2 years ago, they had some serious renovations taking place where the actual tomb is. The University of Athens did that. And I asked a friend of mine in the Greek Patriarchate, what was the story that you heard from the archaeologists that were digging where the Tomb of Christ was? And she said they were using all kinds of devices to measure radiation, etc., near the tomb. And there was a certain spot where the tomb of Jesus was that the devices didn't work. And then they moved it, it worked. And then they moved it back, it didn't work. So what can I tell you? Like, although it's very built up and there is so many ornaments and decorations over there, it doesn't look like the hill of Golgotha necessarily, or the ancient cave. But there's something about the energy of these places that I think that you'll feel right away. And that's, I know it's not necessarily satisfying, but faith is more important, I guess. And that would be my humble answer. And I hope it will satisfy in some sort. Yes, Joseph.
Okay, so there's another question. 1 second. What does grotto mean?
Grotto is the underground caves, often caves. I'll just mention the people were asking, the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem, also very authentic site. And although in the 19th century, it was identified in the 19th century, the Garden Tomb is the authentic place to visit in order to feel, okay, how the garden looked like where Jesus was crucified, the Garden of Joseph of Arimathea, the ancient tomb. So this would be definitely a very authentic place to visit. Although, of course, there is dispute between the churches whether it was there or in the old city in the church. Yes.
Okay. Here's the general question. Is it better to travel alone or take a tour? How many days do I need? I assume the question is
here's the question for Elisa.
Come to Israel.
Elisa, please join us here in the spotlight.
Look, it's a good question. People have been here years and they don't see everything. I mean, that's really the short answer. It's how much time do you have, and obviously, you know, it's budget as well. We always recommend to people if they're coming on a first time tour to be here a minimum of 8 nights if possible. I mean, you're already spending money on a flight. You're really cheating yourself if you turn around and leave so quickly. Certainly, there's no question that a tour will provide you with a much deeper level of content that you could ever get going on your own. There's just so much to be learned and such a depth of experience and a deeper meaning from everything that you've learned up until now from reading your Bibles that you get when you're on site, and it's just not the same if you try to do it by yourself. We do tours that are as long as 14 days, and we also have people who will come and do, let's say, a 7 or 8 day tour and then stay on. That say they've built the confidence, they've been here, they've gotten to know the country, and then maybe they want to do a couple things on their own, and we actually even guide them. There's certain places that they may not need an actual private tour guide or be part of a group, and we help put it together that way. But absolutely come on a tour. There's just no way you'll get to see so much and learn so much that you would never be able to do on your own.
Great. There's another question. Is there an actual nativity tour?
Well, the actual, it's not a good question. Typically, look, we create programs that are curated according to what our clients want. So if somebody wants, let's say, a tour that's totally nativity, that kind of a program could either be, just Nazareth and Bethlehem, which by itself would already be, at least 3 days. But what we talk about is going into the footsteps of Jesus. It's a minimum of 8 days. And yes, we would do the tour in keeping with the nativity story, but also with the story of starting with King David. I mean, there's a lot of connection there coming from Scripture, from the Old Testament, that really creates the foundation from which you can truly understand the essence of Christianity and where it's coming from. So we really like to give that as well. And I have to say, I would also really recommend that you think about including at least a day or two, which focuses on modern Israel, the prophecy of modern Israel and what is happening in Israel, now in technology and people moving and the Ethiopians, and there's just so much going on in that, and to just see how Israel's come alive. So both ancient and modern. I think that's all part of the nativity story, the story of renewal, and Israel constantly renewing itself. We're 70 years young.
Yeah, Itamar, there was a lot of good comments and accolades and
heartwarming, really.
Yes. So I can't read them all, but a lot of people wrote that you're a wonderful tour guide, and thank you for that informative tour. We have some more questions. So this is actually a statement that I'll form into a question. This person writes, I think a tour of the city of David would be fun. So much being discovered today within that city. So that leads to the question of what is being discovered today in the city of David?
Oh my God. It's, we get new new insights about this place by the day. Really, like I can't keep up. And as Elisa, maybe do you keep up with the excavation? It's so much is going on over there.
There's so much going on, but yeah, a lot has happened actually. Within the last year. There's for those of you who've been to the city of David before, people would oftentimes do the tunnel tour that would take you down to the pool of Shiloh,
Siloam.
Okay, so now there's a new pilgrim route that they've opened up that takes you all the way up to basically the old city, to the Western Wall, and you can actually do the entire route if you've got a little bit of energy, because it takes quite a bit of time, but it goes all the way up through from the base, from the pool of Shiloh, all the way up to the city, and it's absolutely fascinating.
Lisa, if you don't mind, they talked about the city of David, so I have to show that. I mean, the pool of here is the city of Jerusalem is just over here. You can see the Golden Dome, Temple Mount. That's where we toured earlier. And just a bit southern from it, the city of David and the pool of Siloam. From there, like you said, the Pilgrim's Road, they just discovered. Here, supposed to see that probably from, yeah, this is a good spot. So the pool of Siloam that was excavated probably 20 something years ago, from there they found the ancient street, 700 meters street, 2,100 feet, that goes all the way to the western wall and towards the Temple Mount. So just showing you the ancient pool of Siloam. Okay, only 10% of it was excavated, because the other land over here to the right belongs to the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate, and recently it was bought by the Authority of Antiquities. As far as we understand, they're going to start digging in the foreseen future, I hope. And from the Siloam pool, you can actually see the ancient cobblestones that you see here. This is original, and from here, this is one of the entrances to the Pilgrim's Road. So when Jesus was in Jerusalem, very likely he walked from here, from the Siloam pool, healing the blind man, I just remind you. He walked towards the temple. So this is, again, what we have, and hopefully it will look even much better by the end of the pandemic. So you'll visit a very decent site, I would say. Yes.
And there's several people who asked, will this tour be available on YouTube? Will we send them the link as a follow-up?
Yes, it will be posted on YouTube. We actually have last night's already posted as well. So we'll post this one too. It's the same tour, similar.
Great. Maybe we'll take about 2 more questions, and then I'll make then I'll close it with some thoughts or some comments. So maybe
we'll definitely have to have Joel participate sometime. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Okay. He'll definitely be joining in future tours and sessions. Sorry, for those that don't know, maybe everyone knows, but Joel Rosenberg is a New York Times bestselling author and political analyst and Middle East expert. And he's the co-founder of All Israel News. And I apologize, I'm sorry he can't join us this evening, but he'll be joining on future tours as a host as well, and answering questions and guiding as well. So yeah, he says hi. Yeah, I'll just take maybe a moment. Well, I'll just go with one more question, because I said we'll have some more questions. Any 1 or 2 more questions before I just share a little bit more about All Israel News?
Right, there's a question here about, I'm not sure if this would take you too long to access, Itamar, but if you could show some views of the tunnels below the Temple Mount, so the Western Wall tunnels. I'm not sure, I don't know if we can get in there, but if you can. There's another question.
I sent a link on the chat board that has a pretty good program on the temple and some of the archaeological finds.
Okay, great, thank you. Maybe you can show on the map how somebody would travel from Nazareth down to Bethlehem. You're silent.
Itamar, you're silent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that we started the session with that, and we'll conclude with it as well. So what you see over here, again, Israel, you can see Nazareth just over here, and the fastest way to go from Nazareth to Jerusalem is clearly through Samaria. City of Nablus, Shiloh, Bethel, to Jerusalem. But this area was very hostile back then. It was the land of the Samaritans, and it was dangerous for Jews to walk there because of ancient hostility between Samaritans and Jews. I just reminded the women the Samaritan lady in Nablus, she's very surprised to meet Jesus. Therefore, the Galileans often walk through Beth Shean. It's a major city over there, and from there they would take two roads. One is in the Jordan Valley. When the weather is comfortable, it's okay to walk in the Jordan Valley. A bit northern from the Dead Sea, there's the city of Jericho, and from there up to Jerusalem. That was the typical road. Another way is when it's too hot, let's say around June, the Feast of Pentecost, it was too hot at this point, and most people would walk in Transjordan, cities like Jerash, Philadelphia, Amman, what's now is Amman, and to Jericho. So this is, again, the baptism site is situated over here, so you can see why John it's not a random coincidence that he's over there. He knows that there is some traffic over there. So this is probably the Nativity Trail like that. And from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, that's of course very, very close.
Can you also point out where Shiloh is?
The city of Shiloh? Shiloh, there we go. Just a bit southern from Nablus. See Shiloh. This is the main road, Road 60. You can see it over here. And it was an ancient road back then. It's not just the modern road. So this is the new settlement of Shiloh, the new yeshuv over there. And just next to it, you can see Tel Shiloh. That's the ancient hill of Shiloh. So this is it. We found lots of archaeology over there. The walls, the storerooms, the place of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. So fascinating place. Yes.
So thank you. Let's all give a big round of applause to Itamar.
And Elisa.
Being a great guy. Thank you.
It never happened.
So just share a couple minutes about All Israel News and how you can help. And then I'll pass it back to Elisa for the final word. And we'll end for the evening. It's been an hour and 15 minutes, a little bit more. And we want to be cognizant of the time. So I just want to say there's several ways that you can help. First of all, I'll just say that All Israel News and All Arab News launched in September 1st, 2020. So we're only about 4 months old. So relatively new website, news from Israel, based in Israel, to reach the evangelical Christian world all around. So the best way, one of the ways that you could really help us is to share with your friends, share with your pastor, share with your churches. You know, there's a saturated market out there with news, and a lot of Christians like to complain about the news, right? Complain about the news is biased against Israel. It's anti-God, anti-Israel, anti-this, anti-that. So rather than complaining about the news or about the mainstream media, we say, let's do something about it. So that's what Joel and myself and my team of All Israel News, who, by the way, I think some are online now. So Nicole, Jan Sazyan, and Tommy Frank, I saw you come in, but I can't find with all the people here. If you want to spotlight yourselves, or if we can spotlight you. Nicole is the news editor, and Tommy's in charge of digital media, and I'm the managing operator, or the managing editor of operations. So we're all behind the scenes. You don't see us much, except for tours like this. So I don't know if Nicole or Tommy are there. There's Nicole. So
I don't know how to myself, but hi, everybody.
So you can say what you do.
Hi, I'm the news editor of All Israel News and All Arab News, and it's been really exciting bringing you guys the news from the Middle East. This has been a crazy 4 months since we started. There's never a slow news day over here. So anyway, one of the stories that I wrote when I first, around the time we first started was the very sad story of a travel expert here in Israel who said that he didn't think that the borders of Israel were going to open before 2021. And it turns out he was right. And it was really just one of the saddest stories I ever wrote, because it was back maybe in October, and turned out people were like, no, that can't be, it can't be. And it turned out he was right. So that was one of the inspirations to an evening like this, knowing that you can't be here on the ground anytime soon, was just to be able to bring you here in another way, and also to connect with you, and also to just give you a picture of the things that we're writing about in some way. Like now you have a geographic picture in your mind of, we're writing about Christmas in Nazareth or in Bethlehem, or lockdowns between Jerusalem and the Palestinian territories. Now you can see it for yourselves. Like you saw it on Google Maps, and you saw, Itamar talked about it. And so I think it was just a great way to really bring you guys here. And so hopefully it gives you a more live perspective of the news as you read our sites. And we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yes, so thank you. So again, if you could share with your friends, because we really want to get this website out as a news, reliable and trustworthy, incredible news source for the Christian world. So really share with your friends. So rather than paying Facebook and Twitter lots of advertising dollars to reach the Christian world, we ask you to help us to reach the Christian world, right? So there's a big network of the body of Messiah, the body of Christ around the world. So help us reach other Christians, and go to allisrael.com, sign up for a free email, and stay updated. Also stay updated on future tours. Someone asked in the chat about, will there be other virtual tours? Certainly the answer is yes, but you need to sign up for the email list in order that we can notify you of upcoming tours. So that's number one, sign up and tell your friends. Number two, if you have the financial means in this difficult financial times with COVID, and you can make a donation, we are a nonprofit. You can go to donate.allisrael.com. I will share a slide soon. And if you give $25 or more, we will give you this beautiful calendar, Jerusalem of Gold, for 2021. The pictures of Jerusalem and all the Hebrew holidays. At the bottom, it says, thank you for standing with Israel, and has the logo of All Israel News and All Arab News, and another sister site, kihila.org. So for $25, you can get this, and you can support the vision, really a media vision to impact and influence the media realm for God's purposes. So if you stand with us in this vision, please, it's not cheap to run a media site. So we depend on readers like you, and subscribe to help us. That's number two. And the third thing I would ask you for your help is, as Nicole has said, the news editor, that there's been no tours in Israel basically since March to now for 9 months. And so really the tourism industry has been seriously impacted. When I say seriously impacted, I don't mean down 20% income, 30% income, 40% income. There are tour agencies that are down 100% income, meaning zero income since the COVID has started. So we're happy that we could partner with Travelujah, and to partner with this virtual tour that is free, by the way, for you. You signed up for free, but in a physical tour, if you're in Israel, it's very common, to tip the tour guide at the end of the tour, and you walk off the bus and you pass the tip jar, you can put in some shekels, and it goes to the tour guide. But in a virtual tour, it's much harder to do that. So we're going to put a link, and I'm going to put up a slide that you can tip Itamar and Elisa for the great tour that they just gave you. It's paypal.me/Travelujah, and I will put up the slide soon. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for joining. We'll definitely have future tours. And I want to thank you. I'm going to share my screen, and you'll be able to see the slides. 1 second.
Thanks for Joel's insight to have the All Israel and All Arab News, and for you guys putting these little get-togethers, kind of keeping us all connected.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. So there's the PayPal to give a tip to Itamar. Oh, that should stay on longer. Sorry about that. It's going fast. It's looping around. Maybe too fast now.
Okay.
So sign up. And there. So thank you again. And yeah, while this is looping around, you're free to ask any questions. You know, just as we're chatting, just pretend we got off the bus and we're just mingling around the bus, and you can just ask some more questions, and then we'll end it very shortly.
Could you tell us about All Arab News?
Yeah, for sure. It's a sister website. Think of it as one website with two home pages. So Joel has a lot of contacts in the Arab world with Arab leaders. He's met the King of Jordan. He's met President Sisi of Egypt. He's met the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. He's met the Crown Prince of the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and the ambassadors. He was just in Bahrain and Dubai and met with different ambassadors. And even though there's peace agreements that are happening with Abraham Accords with the UAE and Bahrain and Morocco, there are still many in the Arab world that it's a little bit too much, Joel would say, for them to be interviewed or profiled on All Israel News. And so they're much more comfortable to be covered on All Arab News. So yeah, so we launched the sites right before the Abraham Accord. So we didn't realize all these peace agreements were coming. I think Joel did, because he had met with MBZ, who was the Crown Prince of the UAE, several years ago, but it was off the record, what they said at that meeting. But now, after the peace accord, he could say it on the record. Yeah, so that's the reason. So it's similar to the Joshua Fund's vision. If those who are familiar with the Joshua Fund, which is a nonprofit humanitarian and educational ministry that was founded by Joel Rosenberg and his wife Lynn. And the slogan of the Joshua Fund is to bless Israel and her neighbors in the name of Jesus, according to Genesis 12:3. So Israel and her neighbors, her neighbors are the surrounding Arab countries. So Joel feels very strongly that there should not be two camps, either the pro-Israel camp, and then you're kind of maybe anti-Palestinian, or the pro-Arab camp and maybe anti-Israel. Joel feels that it can be both. You can be pro-Israel and pro-Arab, because we are all God's creation and Jesus loves us all. So in that expression of the Joshua Fund and really Joel's heart, he wanted to have All Israel News and All Arab News.
Good, thank you. Could you tell me what the Kahila org is? Is that anything to do with the there's a email newsletter that we get from Kahila?
Yeah. So I'm the founder of that. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. So let me think. I'm just going to make these a little bit longer. So Kahila.org or Kahila News is a website that I founded several years ago as a centralized news site by the community in Israel and for the Messianic community in Israel. And that's, you could say, a neutral platform was the goal, to have all the different streams. When I say streams, the denominations of in Israel, all be on one website and to be profiled. There's also a directory, list of congregations, list of ministries. And so that is, so Kehillah is the Hebrew word for community or assembly or church. So so that's been around for several years. It's always been a side project, labor of love. I'm a computer engineer, and I worked in venture capital, maybe getting back to it now. Before I started All Israel News with Joel several months ago. So Kehillah News was always a side project, just to really to connect the body of Messiah in Israel with the body of Messiah, meaning body of Christ, the Christian world, outside of Israel. So
Thank you so much
I
for
guess
Kehillah News.
what?
I've been getting Kehillah News for a while now, and
Yeah.
I really, really like it. It's so informational and wonderful teaching as well. I really enjoy it.
So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I think
Joseph, somebody asked if there's an app for mobile phones.
we would love to have an app, but we are a super low budget operation right now, and we haven't invested in an app. But yeah, we would love to have an app for all Israel, for all Arab, and for Kehillah.org. We would also love to invest in more video production, video news. Like we have a lot of written content, all Israel news and all Arab news, but a lot of the media is going more and more towards video, and we want to get Joel more in video, but really have it edited and really give either weekly or daily reports in video. But that also is a very high budget item, especially if you do it right and professionally. So if you have a vision really to stand with us in this media vision to impact and influence the media realm for God's purposes, especially a media site by believers in Israel, and you stand with us in this vision, then please, whether it's $5, $10, $25 or $25,000 or $250,000, then, we could definitely use your support. So yeah, there's a lot of great, noble causes to give to, and everyone has limited funds. I always say give in addition to, not instead of. So I say give a tip to Itamar and Elisa in addition to. You can support allisrael.com and All Arab and Kehillah.org. And in addition to, you can support the Joshua Fund. And in addition to, you can support several other ministries. If you go to Kehillah.org, there's a directory there. There's several ministries there, whatever on your heart, whether it's humanitarian ministries or teaching ministries or discipleship ministries or youth ministries or Ethiopian immigrants or Aliyah or terrorist victims, I'm sure, or abortion, pro-life. There's a ministry in Israel that will fit what is on your heart and where to sow into. So go to Kehillah.org if you want to see a list of several ministries in Israel. Any other questions for myself or Elisa or Itamar?
Any tours that Joel's doing here in the United States coming up this next year?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty because of COVID. He usually has a book tour every April. So he usually also combines that and speaking at different churches. So I'm guessing that he'll be there in April. So here's a note. I visited Israel with a tour with Joel Rosenberg and loved it. Lynn was also with the tour, and so was an Epicenter conference. Plus we got to visit the Joshua Fund. Yeah, so there's Epicenter conferences that Joel has done, which is basically, various guest speakers and speaking about the region, the Epicenter. So someone says, I'm trying to send money, but this PayPal is not pulling up. Lisa, can you type in
Sure.
the PayPal for everyone? And I'm going to type in also.
Thanks again for the presentation. I'll sign off.
It's HTTPS with an S at the end.
With an S at the end where? HTTPS. Okay. So thank you again all for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having us.
Have a wonderful
Merry Christmas
evening
to you all.
and, Happy
Thank
2000 and healthy 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you. everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
God
Thank
bless
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Shalom.
Bye-bye.
Wishing you all
Very,
very
very interesting.
Hello, from Virginia Beach.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Thank you and shalom. Bye from
Shalom.
Georgia, USA.
Happy New Year to everybody. I hope that 2021 brings everyone much good health, a much better year, a vaccine, of course, and hopefully a visit to the land of Israel. We would love to see you here. We look forward to welcoming you and to working hopefully on more virtual tours, and wish you very much a very safe New Year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am going to end this meeting. Thanks,
All the
Joseph.
best, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank
you so much.
להתראות.
Litrot. Shalom. Happy 2021.
Can you hear
Blessings.
me?
Bye.
Can you
Could
hear
you-
me?
Could you please send us the link so we can tip the 2 tour guides? Itzmar. Send the link by email because I can't do it on my iPhone.
Sure. Yeah. We'll send a follow-up email with the links that we mentioned.
Yes,
Thank you
please.
so much. Appreciate
you.
that. Thank you.
Okay.
Bless you. I
Bye-bye.
really enjoyed this.
Wonderful.
It's
Happy to
been-
hear.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom. Shalom.
God bless you all.
To end the
That
meeting.
was
Yep. You can end it.